Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, um, Monday, July 14th, 2024. Um, or I'm sorry, 2025. We're, of course, going to be going to give people a chance to come in before we get started. Hopefully, everybody's having a good day today. Good start to the week as we are getting ready to. As we are getting, as we are getting ready to get going here. Um, let's see. So, all right. So, a friendly reminder, of course, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, why don't we go? Guess I'll talk a little bit about what I did today. Of course, I'm almost through 1938 in terms of my cartoon watching. Just started watching stuff out of December, including a Gandy Goose cartoon, one of the first Terry tunes in Technicolor. Um, so kind of their take on, I think it's called the name of the cartoon. Title of the cartoon was Doomsday. It was kind of the Gandy Goose version of Chicken Little. So let's see. What else can we talk about here? Of course, I also saw a Betty Boop cartoon. Um, on with the new, as it were. And she tried to go from being a short order cook to being a babysitter, which didn't go over so well. Other than Daffy Duck in Hollywood, one of one of Warner Brothers' attempts at making live action with animation. Um, so, with that being said, of course, now we're at the 3 minute mark, so I guess I'll talk now about what's going down for tonight. So what's going on for tonight here? So tonight we are going to do one story from Bleeding Fool, um, and we're going to follow up with the Neil Gaiman situation as another article has come out on in regards. As the Sandman TV adaptation concludes, here's how Neil Gaiman's reputation is holding up by Avi Green. We'll be doing that article. We have quite a bit of wrestling news to go over, as of course there was quite a bit of activity over the weekend, as AEW had its All In pay per view, of course. Ring of Honor had Supercard of Honor on Friday night. WWE was trying to counter program that with, of course, Saturday night's main event and Saturday night's main event and Evolution on Sunday. We'll talk about all that. We'll of course look back to Friday night SmackDown, look ahead to tonight's Raw, and then we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So, with all that being said, I think I'm going to go ahead. I would usually wait till the 5 minute mark at least, but we're almost there, so might as well get started now. So, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the screen. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Hey, Metal. Okay, I wonder what's going on here. Something's going on with. Yeah, something's going on with this hmm. I don't know what's going on here because apparently I didn't want that. All right, something's going on because I can't see the chat. I can't see the chats in the stream yard, but I go over to I go over to hmm. Oh, like comments on the screen. Hmm. It seems a little odd. Anyways, hmm. Okay. Maybe it's cursed. Yeah. I don't know what's going on here. Recording. Yeah, okay, guess. Something's going a little screwy here. I guess the studio. I'll stop. So that. Oh, okay. Anyways, show comments on stage. Yet none of my comments are. I can't see any of the comments here. All right, hold on a sec, folks. I've got to apparently do something here. Comments are not showing. Oh, there they are. All right, never mind then. Now they finally show up. All right, sorry about that, guys. I don't know what was going on, but there's a few things kind of screwy going on here. I think. All right, because and even oh, I see now. All right. You will get a cut. All right, so here's Rick's thing right here. If you guys haven't um you guys want to go check that out. All right, so let me get back now that we got that apparently solved. Let's now get back to what I was trying to do in the first place. So, alrighty then. Here we go. Alrighty then. Everything more accurate now, I guess. All right. Sorry. I get just some stuff they're doing with the layout here has kind of caught me off guard a little bit, so that's why I'm a little like apparently they're no longer showing the view count in the view count on the side of the timer there. Um, all right. So, anyways, I guess I'll just get into this. As the Sandman TV adaptation concludes, here's how Neil Gaiman's reputation is holding up. Article by Avi Green, published July 14th, 2024. The TV show on Netflix, based on the disgraced Neil Gaiman's um, Sandman comic series, draws to a close, and as could surely expected, there's more op-ed writers who vented their observations on both the TV adaptation and Neil and the Gaiman sexual abuse scandal that precipitated its ending. For example, here's what a writer at Comic Book Club Live had to say, and while there are some interesting points to be made, they're damaged. They're damaged when the columnist follows a poor example of those who've dragged J.K. Rowling into the mess for the millionth time. First, let's take a look at the following points he ostensibly makes. So here's from the article that um, oh, there we go. Now everything's now everything's starting to finally come in. Oh boy. All right. So, here we go. All right. So, this is not a review of Netflix's The Sandman, which premieres the first half of its second and final season tomorrow morning, July 3rd, in parentheses there. Reviews are embargoed until the episodes launch on Netflix anyway. So I wouldn't bother posting a review of something that is free and available to watch. But this is a discussion about how The Sandman, which was once one of the most eagerly anticipated adaptations of all time, is now near possible to watch. We often discuss the need to separate the art from the artist, but you just can't separate Neil Gaiman and his reported abusive actions towards women from his self-insert character Morpheus. What should be a must-watch is now physically painful to even look at. And here's Avi's response to what was just said. And the most jarring violence from the comics wasn't painful to look at over 30 years ago. I think there's room for improvement here, but trouble is, he's not making any. And then he dampens what impact this column might have had with the following. Weird. Perhaps isn't the word I would use, but what Goyer notes here is the core of the internal conflict that racks anyone who is tainted by a terrible man. Like Gaiman, hundreds of other people's work are financially and artistically impacted by one man's deeds. The cast, the crew, the producers, they were just there doing their jobs. And to not release the show, like Goyer notes, means they won't be fully compensated and won't have their work seen. As we continue with the article here, now I can see any more is being said. All right. Again, feel free to comment and or ask questions if you guys have if anything grabs your attention here. Anyways, and that part as well. But there's the added issue of whether Gaiman also gets financially compensated by the release of The Sandman. The answer is likely yes, he does. In that case, does that money go towards fueling lawsuits he can use against the women he reportedly abused? That's certainly the sort of path people can draw between, say, J.K. Rowling and buying Harry Potter merchandise. She uses the money to harm and attack trans people all over the world. Let's see. There's J.K. Rowling right there, I guess. And I guess this is Avi's response to what we just read there. Seems we have another somebody here who's obscuring Rowling's own terrible experience with sexual assault, and those who've pretended it never happened put their sincerity in doubt. So how can we be convinced who claim they're disgusted by Gaiman's real-life offenses are on the level if they won't acknowledge Rowling has moral authority to speak on these issues? In the following article, Pajiva's writer had the audacity to, and so this is still Avi speaking, of course, to make a point realists shouldn't put money in Gaiman's pockets by tuning in, and thankfully, in contrast to Comic Book Club, she doesn't drag Rowling into the subject. And this is the article that Avi's referring to. So, a strange footnote to the extensive coverage of the allegations over the past year has been the impact it had on Hollywood, where studios had multiple adaptations of Gaiman's works in development. Some projects were canceled outright, while others are proceeding in truncated form. One such project is Netflix's The Sandman, which will launch its second and final season on July 3rd, which, of course, has already happened, like maybe almost a week and a half ago, I guess. Last Wednesday, in fact. So it's almost 2 weeks ago. It'll be 2 weeks Wednesday here. But anyways, and the promotion has been fascinating to behold. Discussions of the show itself are taking a backseat to the quote-unquote but why of it all. Why release the show at all Why perpetuate the work of this man after everything we've learned and continue to put money in his pocket? Yeah, I know there are charges pending in certain places like New Zealand and stuff against him, but he still hasn't been convicted. So it's still kind of a case of, and he has continuously denied the accusation. Um, anyways, a pipeline of gaming adaptations is drying up, with the last few projects readying for release. From here, the question shifts to the fans and viewers in general. Will you watch? I don't begrudge anyone their clear moral compass, but I also appreciate the new life art takes when it is shared amongst collaborators and audiences alike. It no longer belongs to any one author or a hole. So, like the studios, I'm going to decide on a case by case basis. Just as Amazon is seeking to return on their existing investment in Good Omens, so am I. For my time as a viewer, kicking out Gaiman and doing a single long wrap up episode seems like a fair resolution to me. And I'll tune in if they decide to air Anansi Boys. Um, I won't be mad at all. So this is still from the article that he's referring to. I won't be mad. It would be a shame for the hard work of the artist to sit on the shelf, but I probably won't watch because I don't have a similar investment. We're all making these calculations as customers or as consumers all the time between our personal satisfaction and the message we want to send the industry about its choice of projects in the future. And there is no right answer. I just hope all our personal choices net out to the same result. Gaiman continuing his slide into obscurity. Now, granted, I think one of the points that has been kind of drawn upon here is that, yeah, particularly if the shows are already in development, if the work is already out there, and, you know, why punish the other people for Gaiman's actions? Yeah, I think everybody can agree, okay, if Gaiman is this jerk, this a-hole, as some people want to call him, okay, yeah, I think people can understand, okay, maybe we don't want to put money in this a-hole's pocket. But do you do that at the cost of other people who've worked on the show, who put time and effort into putting on a product for the audience? Do you punish them too? Do you like do the whole guilt by association? Well, they worked on the project, so let you know while we're trying to kind of to burn Gaiman, let's burn these people too. Is that really right? Is that really fair? These people may have had nothing to do with the controversy, but yet they're getting dragged into it um, because of one man's actions, right? So, anyways, this holds. Let's see. So this is Avi responding to what we just read there. This holds up better since she wisely refrained from bringing Rowling into the topic, which would only result in contradictions. But there's just no use tuning in to anything credited solely to Gaiman as the author, because who knows if it'll finance his wallet. Um, Again, that's something anybody who's a realist just shouldn't do. Okay, so at least Avi, what Avi, the aspect Avi's playing here is that he believes, yeah, I'll take the money out of other people's pockets too, people who had nothing to do with it, because Gaiman is an a-hole. So that apparently is Avi's approach. So even TV shows can turn profits, and if an author turns out to be a bad lot, that's why even a TV production, not something you should give a monetary boost to. That having been noted, there have been some negative reviews of this second season turning up. And the AV Club says the show is little more than tedious cosplay. It also notes, interestingly enough, and this is from the article now, DC Comics, The Sandman, written by Neil Gaiman, was a groundbreaking and surreal series. However, the Netflix adaptation remains content to paint by the numbers. Superhero movies often take inspiration from their source material, but the better ones usually avoid directly translating stories to the screen word for word or panel for panel. As a TV show, The Sandman struggles to exceed or even match the original stunning visual landscape, and its characters often feel like unimaginative cosplayers reciting Gaiman's dialogue. Now, granted, it wasn't always the case where they try to avoid going like copying word for word, panel for panel, because remember back in the late 60s there, Grantway Lawrence animation, when they did the Marvel superheroes cartoon the year before they did Spider-Man, it did seem like they were doing a direct from the comic. They even have the comic panels as part of the scenes. So, hmm. Oh, anyways, so now back to Avi here. Now isn't this fascinating? They bring up how Gaiman's story did fall into the category of quote unquote surreal. There have been all sorts of PC advocates over the years who've lectured everybody else that if a story is realistic, quote unquote, this literally makes it good, quote unquote. But here, somebody else is claiming the Sandman comics were great because they were surreal, which can mean unrealistic, though also dreamlike and fantastical, in parentheses, which Gaiman's story is definitely not. It's more like a nightmare, in parentheses. That's why a vital point must be made that neither realism nor surrealism alone make an entertainment product wonderful and praiseworthy. It's how talented and meritorious the writing acting in the finished product is that does. So I think it's time these commentators admitted that just because the original comics were jarringly violent doesn't instantly make it a classic. According to the Mirror US, the show's second and last season has been panned widely. So this is from that article. Many fans have admitted feeling conflicted over continuing the series, which features Tom Sturridge as Lord Morpheus, aka Dream, despite a positive response to the first season. Now, the follow up had been released on Netflix today, Thursday, June 3rd. Reviews are in, and some critics are warning subscribers not to bother with the next chapter of Dream's adventures. Now, Avi's response to that statement, whether the sexual abuse scandal had any effect on the proceedings, it makes little difference. The whole comic was so pretentious to begin with and built on. Well, again, this is more Avi's opinion than fact, because some people probably did like the comic. to begin with, and built on the kind of political allusions and metaphors that became a sad staple of the past decade, that it's little wonder it hasn't aged well. And I'm not forgetting how offensive issues 6 and 7 were either. Interestingly, according to Polygon, a quote unquote major story arc, that being the one titled quote unquote A Game of You, was omitted from what was filmed for the screen. Seeing how that itself was a dreadful metaphor for LGBT propaganda, that's why it's pretty amazing if they did decide to jettison the whole story segment. All right. Now, here's a writer at Salon who also thought the Netflix, so this is Avi speaking again, at Salon, who also thought the Netflix show ended badly. And the following description of a storyline, they're certainly eyebrow raising viewed in the context and what we've since learned about gaming. And again, friendly reminder to everybody, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that being said, let's get back to this. The Lord of Dreams is very sorry to have put a woman through hell. We're not talking about a figurative hell either. Dream, the eternally brooding namesake hero of quote unquote the Sandman, portrayed by Tom Sturridge, condemned his great love Nada, played by Umalisa Gahiga, to the infernal plane out of spite. Back and continuing from the article that he's referencing here from the Salon article, Nada may have been queen of a great and ancient African civilization, but Dream is one of the endless. From her perspective, all powerful cosmic beings have no business wiping up with mortals. A random asteroid wiping out her kingdom soon after she accepts Dream's marriage proposal only proves her point. But instead of giving grace to the woman he loves, Dream takes such offense at the thought that Nada would choose hell over an eternity at his side that he sends her straight to the hot place, and not for days or months. She's trapped there for millennia. Regrets? 10,000 years later, Dream has a few. When he finally comes face to face with Nada again, the most he can offer his ex at first is, I think perhaps I should apologize. Wow, talk about understatement. Oh boy. Talk about understatement right there. There's a cheesy old movie quote declaring that love means never having to say you're sorry. This is all still from the article, by the way. Mealy-mouthed half measures like dreams show us why that's a lie. Condemning someone to starve, burn, freeze, and ache for ages out of arrogance deserves a definitive sorry, quote unquote, that should kick off a penance marathon. Hence, we get why the lady finds her ex's gesture a tad underwhelming. Nada reminds Dream that she endured nonstop torture and wept and waited all because of him. Quote, and you think perhaps you should apologize? Unquote, she retorts. Oh boy. Oh boy. Dream, an all powerful being who can shape reality to his will, has a real problem with admitting wrongdoing. When he deceives his sister Delirium, played in this series by Esme Creed Miles, he'd rather keep the resulting rift open and go after her and apologize. When he brings death to another god's door, any attempts at making amends are weak or simply too late. Quote, I will live with eternal regret for what I did to you, unquote, he assures Nada, as if an all-powerful being's regret has value next to more than 100 human lifetimes of torment. And Avi's response to that statement, alas, as Gaiman has since proven in real life, he's anything but remorseful. IndieWire's also panning it for the same reasons, perhaps even the first season. I do need to step away from the camera for a moment. I'll be right back, but what I will do is I'll put some music on, entertain you guys for a moment here while I'm gone. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So hopefully, anyways, getting back to the article here. All right. And then this is from, I guess, the IndieWire article. In season 2, volume 1, Dream learns how to better empathize with humans and his siblings, aka the Endless, which are personified forces of nature, more powerful than gods, in unparenthesis there. But in doing so, he also struggles to recognize his own fallibility, such as that time he confused love for desire and ended up banishing a woman to hell for 10,000 years. Past mistakes like this one invite reality invoking questions of consent and manipulation, while a fixed focus on Dream's absent compassion calls to mind Gaiman's continued denials of any wrongdoing and the legal action he filed against women, accusing him of sexual misconduct. Well, I mean, it's up to them, to prove that he did it. That's the way the law works, you know. Um, if he doesn't feel he did it, then of course he has the right to defend himself. And if he is found guilty, then you go after him. But ostensibly, Dream is slowly coming to realize even the endless can change. That he too may care about people, but the evidence is so scant, so vague, and so hollow. It's all but impossible to separate the art from the artist, even if you can stay awake long enough to try. And this is Avi's response to that statement, I guess. When you realize a TV show, as much as the comics themselves, are more like some bizarre attempt by the author to obscure his own wrongdoings, that's why it all collapses into the dust or sand. No doubt, years from now, all this stuff will be forgotten to the winds of time, since its author proved a mere fraud and little else. I just hope, again, his opinion, there probably are still some people who would be defending, and not that I'm outright defending Gaiman. All I'm saying is that he deserves his day in court, and he is innocent until proven guilty. So, and little else. I just hope none of this will make it difficult to sell reprints of the real Sandman, Wesley Dodds, who's been created in the Golden Age by Gardner Fox. The classic comics from nearly a century ago are what everybody should look for, not the overrated modern mishmash written by a pretentious modern scribe, who's now coming to be seen as the phony he truly was. All right, and there we go with that article. As I said, that was the only article we're going to do for tonight. I will now, of course, unshare this. All right. So now we're gonna move on to the wrestling wrap up. As I said, there's been quite a bit that's happened over the weekend here. We had Supercard on Friday night, All In on Saturday from AEW. You had WWE trying to counter program. So we're gonna go over real quick a lot of the results. Kind of give some details as to what exactly happened in some of these situations. So first off, we're going to go back to Friday night. I'm going to start with Friday Night SmackDown. As on Friday Night SmackDown, this is, of course, the go-home SmackDown before the following night's Saturday Night's main event. Of course, as was the case, the show itself was not looked at too, but then again, the build for WWE's program, shows for both Saturday Night's main event and Evolution were not taken too well, as they were, under build, as it were. So the opening match on SmackDown on Friday night saw 4 of the 8 participants in the women's fatal 4-way match for the women's championship coming up on Sunday's Evolution, taking each other on in a singles 4-way match. Alexa Bliss defeated Kairi Sane, Roxanne Perez, and Sol Ruca in that 4-way, opening up Friday, in preparation for this is again the go home SmackDown before before this weekend's Saturday night's main event and Evolution. Also, the WWE Tag Team titles were on the line as the Street Profits were defending against the Wyatt Six members Dexter Lumis and Joe Gacy. Gacy and Lumis defeated Dawkins and Ford to become the new WWE Tag Team Champions. So you have new Tag Team Champions in Wyatt Six members Joe Gacy and Dexter Lumis. R-Truth defeated Aleister Black in a one-on-one match, in a match that just lasted over 2 minutes. The main event saw Jimmy Uso and LA Knight defeat Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo in a as Knight was, of course, preparing for his match against Seth Rollins on Saturday's Saturday night's main event. So that's all that went down on SmackDown on Friday night. So now moving ahead to Supercard of Honor. From Ring of Honor on that night. 0 Hour, which you could have seen on YouTube. So Supercard of Honor and 0 Hour were coming from the Esports Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Going back for a moment. So last Friday's SmackDown happened from the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, with Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett on commentary for USA Network. So now, moving on to, as we said, Supercard of Honor. First on the pre-show, 0 Hour pre-show, from the Esports Stadium Arlington in Arlington, Texas, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. Opening match of the pre-show saw Blake Christian defeat Jay Lethal in a singles match. Then, in a 6-man tag match, Dark Order with Evil Uno, Alex Reynolds, and John Silver defeated the Frat House members of Griff Garrison, Cole Carter, and Preston Vance with Jack Jameson in their corner. Diamante defeated Lady Frost in a singles match. And then in the main event for the pre-show, 2/3 of the Ring of Honor World 6-Man Tag Team Championship, Marshall and Ross Von Erich defeated the premier athletes of Aria Davari and Tony Nese, who had, of course, Mark Sterling in their corner. Now, of course, moving on to the main card of that evening. Main card of that evening, which also happened at the Esports Stadium Arlington, with, of course, Caprice Coleman, Ian Riccaboni, and during one of the matches, Don Callis on commentary. The opening match on Supercard of Honor saw Hechicero, CMLL's Hechicero, with Rocky Romero in his corner of the Don Callis family, defeat Michael Oakley with Amir in his corner. Michael Oakley, who I think is the current Rev Pro heavyweight champion. Also, in a $50,000 4-way match, A.R. Fox defeated Adam Priest, Atlantis Jr., and Lee Johnson, who, of course, had Blake Christian in his corner. In a match that was set up during the During the Global Wars event in Mexico, Lee Moriarty successfully defended the Pure title against Blue Panther. In a match for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships, the Sons of Texas, Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes, retained over Shane Taylor Promotions' The Inventory of Carly Bravo and Sean Dean, with, of course, Shane Taylor and Trish Adora in their corner. In a match for the Ring of Honor World Television title, Nick Wayne, with Mother Wayne in his corner, retained over Teton in another match that was set up during Global Wars, during the Ring of Honor co-produced event with CMLL, in which Teton lasted the full 10 minutes in a proving ground match, which earned him this title shot. Now, earlier in the evening, it was announced that Red Velvet was not medically cleared to participate in the event that night. So instead of stripping her of the title, they decided to establish an interim Women's World Television title and a four-way match between Persephone, Yuka Sakazaki, Mina Shirakawa, and Miyu Yamashita. Of course, Persephone of CMLL, Miyu Yamashita of Tokyo Joshi Pro, and then, of course, Sasaki and Mina Shirakawa of AEW. Mina Shirakawa defeated the other three to become the interim Women's World, the Ring of Honor interim Women's World Television title. And she'll be, of course, on display on Ring of Honor television until, I guess, Red Velvet comes back from whatever injury she's getting from. What will likely happen, of course, is once Red Velvet come back, they'll have a unification match between the interim and actual Women's World Television title. And then the Athena successfully retained the ROH Women's World title over Thunder Rosa. And in the main event, Bandito successfully retained the Ring of Honor World title over Konosuke Takeshita, who, of course, had Don Callis in his corner. So that was, of course, happened all on Friday night. So now, moving on to Saturday, some stuff, as I said, some major stuff was happening over the weekend here. And of course, we'll start off by looking at All In, as that was the first event of the day, as it were. And of course, just as with Supercard of Honor, All In had a pre-show 0 hour. All In and the All In 0 hour pre-show took place in the Globe Life Field. Of course, you could have also seen the 0 hour event from All In on YouTube with Excalibur, Nigel McGuinness, and Tony Schiavone on commentary. The opening match of the 0 hour pay-per-view, all four of the Sons of Texas, basically the combination of Ring of Honor's World Tag Team and World Six-Man Tag Team Champions, Sammy Guevara, Dustin Rhodes, and the Von Erich brothers, Marshall and Von Erich, with Kevin Von Erich in their corner, defeated Shane Taylor Promotions of Pure Champion Lee Moriarty, Shane Taylor, and then the Inventory of Carly Bravo and Sean Dean, with Andy Ogogo and Trish Adora in their corner. And this would be something, you'll see something particularly with Rhodes and Guevara in particular here. You'll see why in a moment here. And then in an 8-man tag match, Big Boom AJ teamed with the conglomeration members of Hologram, New Japan Strong Openweight Champion Tomohiro Ishii, and Kyle O'Reilly. Who's also a part of the Paragon, and that's going to be something later on we're going to talk a little bit about as well. with Big Justice and Rizzler in their corner, defeating the Don Callis family members of Lance Archer, Hechicero, and RPG Vice of Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero with Don Callis in their corner. And the main event of the 0 hour pre-show saw FTR of Dak Harwood and Cash Wheeler defeat the Outrunners of Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum. So there you go with the pre-show. Now moving on to the main show of All In Texas, also coming from the Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas. Of course, Excalibur, Nigel McGuinness, and Tony Schiavone on commentary with a slew of others. Taz and Matt Menard as well, part of the. But the opening match saw a match for the AEW World Trios titles on the line, which the Ops of Powerhouse Hobbs, Samoa Joe, and Katsuyori Shibata retained over the Death Riders members Claudio Castagnoli, Real Yuta, and Gabe Kidd. After the match saw afterwards, the Death Riders try to take Joe out after the match. In the men's casino gauntlet battle royal, MJF defeated a number of other individuals, including amongst them the returning Juice Robinson, also Mark Briscoe and Mystico were part of that, Kota Ibushi, Konosuke Takeshita, Roderick Strong, Beast Murder. Basically, MJF won the casino gauntlet battle royal and thus earned a shot at the AEW World Heavyweight title, which we'll get to that in a moment. One of the other keynotes, as I mentioned, during the Casino Gauntlet match, saw the return of Juice Robinson from injury. In a four-way match for the TNT title, and now this is something that I had to mention here. So earlier in the night, we talked about on Friday night how the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion or Ring of Honor World Women's Television Champion Red Velvet was injured and they had to crown an interim champion. Well, in this case, we had another situation that was announced Saturday morning that Adam Cole was not medically cleared and may not be medically cleared for a while, to the point to where they actually had to fully vacate the TNT title, and this fatal four-way match was set up between Kyle Fletcher, who was already challenging for it, former champion Daniel Garcia, and the Sons of Texas, Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes. This four-way match saw Dustin Rhodes win the title, it's his first single title in AEW. So now the remarkable thing about this match as well, aside from the fact that aside from the fact of the circumstances that led to this match, Adam Cole, it looks like, will be out for a while. There's some talk that he may have to contemplate retirement. So before this match started, Adam Cole had come out to address the fans on his situation. Did see following that, saw Kyle O'Reilly, his Paragon stablemates of Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong come out and give him a hug, as it has been since reported that he suffered a concussion during a match recently when he was powerbombed on the ring apron during a match against Kyle Fletcher. That's what led to this four-way match for the TNT title, with Dustin Rhodes winning the title match. In a tag team match, in which there was a tag team match that was also scheduled between the Young Bucks of Matthew Nicholas Jackson and the team of Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana in their corner. in which if the Bucks lost, they would have to give up their EVP positions in AEW. If Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland lost, they could not challenge for the world title for another year. And it looked like Ospreay and Strickland defeated the Young Bucks. So now the Young Bucks are no longer EVP. Now, I don't know if it was also implied. It was somewhat implied. I don't know if this is actually also the case, that somehow maybe Ospreay and Strickland also would be taking over those EVP spots or not. But they retained their chances to challenge for, they could still challenge for the world title at any point. In the women's casino gauntlet match, Athena outlasted a number of opponents, including the debuting Alex Windsor and Shiori. Shiori making her AEW debut, and Alex Windsor making her debut as a fully signed talent. Windsor, I believe, did have some appearances on AEW before, but this will be her time as a fully signed talent. Of course, among some of the other members involved include, of course, Julia Hart, Megan Bayne, Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale, Thunder Rosa, Thekla, Ty Mallow, Queen Aminata, and of course the newly crowned interim Ring of Honor Women's World Television Champion Mina Shirakawa. In a three-way match for the AEW World Tag Team titles, the Hurt Syndicate of Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley retained over the teams of Jet Speed, Speedball Mike Bailey and the Jet Kevin Knight, and the Patriarchy, Christian Cage and Nick Wayne. Now, who had Kip Sabian and Mother Wayne in their corner. The match did see Stokely Hathaway and FTR on commentary here for this match. On commentary for this match. And after the match, after a little dust up between Christian Cage and FTR, as FTR got in and I think it was Dax Harwood who was accidentally knocked off the ring apron by Christian Cage. After the match, saw something that people had been wondering when, there's been some speculation it was going to happen for some time, in which the Patriarchy essentially turned on Christian Cage. Nick Wayne, along with Kip Sabian, Mother Wayne, they turned on him, leading essentially to a 6-on-1 attack in which Nick Wayne, Kip Sabian, FTR, and Stokely Hathaway, along with Mother Wayne, all attacked Christian Cage. Saw, Mother Wayne paintbrushing Christian Cage, only to see the return of Cope to the company to try to get his revenge on FTR for putting him out of action, but also for the possible reuniting of Christian Cage and Cope. Basically, after saving his real life best friend, Cope told him, go find yourself. And then in a match for the AEW Women's World title, Toni Storm retained over TBS champion Mercedes Moné as she fell short in her attempt to add another belt to her collection. They had a pretty hardy battle from what I've heard. In a unification match, in a winner-takes-all match, to crown the first AEW Unified Champion, Kazuchika Okada, going in as the Continental Champion, defeated Kenny Omega, going in as the International, to unify the two titles. Kenny Omega, of course, had his Golden Lovers tag team partner, Kota Ibushi, in his corner for the match. So now your new AEW Unified Champion, Kazuchika Okada. In the main event, in a Texas death match for the AEW World Championship, saw Adam Page defeat Jon Moxley to become the new AEW champion. A lot happened in this match. We saw the return of Darby Allin. We saw the Death Riders get involved. Saw Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay get involved as the Death Riders tried to beat down Will Ospreay. Swerve Strickland chased him off with a chain, then handed the chain, then basically handed the chain off to Adam Page, who used the chain to choke out Moxley and win the match. Basically, you could do that in a Texas death match, as no disqualifications, win by pinfall or submission only. So now, of course, we're all done with the AEW stuff. Now, to move forward to what happened with WWE yesterday, as they tried to counter program AEW. First up, in the afternoon, WWE's NXT brand had a pay-per-view, had a event from Atlanta, Georgia, from Center Stage Theater in Atlanta, Georgia, the former place where WCW used to do a lot of their shows. With Booker T, Corey Graves, and Vic Joseph on commentary. Saw Javon Evans defeat Jasper Troy in a singles match to open up the show. Sol Ruca retained the women's North American title over Izzy Dane. In a Falls Count Anywhere match for the NXT North American title, Ethan Page retained over Ricky Saints. Obafemi retained the NXT title over Yoshiki Inamura with Josh Briggs in his corner. And the main event saw Jordan Grace and Blake Monroe defeat Fatal Influences, JC Jane and Fallon Henley in basically a prelude to JC Jane's title defense against Jordan Grace on Sunday's Evolution, on last night's Evolution. Then later on Saturday night's main event, saw with Michael Cole and Wade Barrett on commentary. Randy Orton, with Jelly Roll in his corner, defeated Drew McIntyre, who had Logan Paul in his corner. Solo Sikoa retained the United States title over his cousin Jimmy Uso. LA Knight defeated Seth Rollins in a match they had to stop almost immediately. So Seth Rollins ended up getting hurt during the match, landing on his foot wrong, and he somehow injured his knee. It's believed he might be today. He's supposed to get an MRI, but it looks like he might be out for a while, which kind of puts a lot of other things in the air, because he being the Money in the Bank winner, a lot of things are being planned around him. And then in the match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, Gunther retained over Goldberg in Goldberg's final match. So that all went down there. Now moving on, of course, to Sunday, to yesterday. As yesterday, the second ever Evolution pay-per-view, the all-women's pay-per-view by the WWE, coming from the State Farm Arena, which is where Saturday night's main event took place in Atlanta, Georgia, with Michael Cole and Wade Barrett on commentary. Opening match saw Becky Lynch retain the WWE Women's Intercontinental title, the triple threat match over Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. In a match for the WWE NXT Women's title, JC Jane retained over Jordan Grace. JC Jane had Fallon Henley and Jasmine Nix in her corner. Jordan Grace had Blake Monroe. And Blake Monroe ended up turning on Jordan Grace to help JC Jane become the new NXT Women's title in what would be somewhat considered, I guess, kind of a replay of what Blake Monroe as Mariah May did to Toni Storm. Now, Jacy Jayne, now as NXT Women's Champion, will now move on to next Sunday, or this Sunday now, to Slammiversary from T. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow, this coming Friday's, or this coming Sunday's Slammiversary, as we just have so much to talk about here coming up over the weekend here. In the fatal four-way match for the women's tag team title, the Judgment Day duo of Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez retained over Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, representing SmackDown, Sol Ruca and Zarya representing NXT, and the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane representing Raw. Tiffany Stratton retained the women's title over Trish Stratus. Jade Cargill defeated Naomi in a no-holds-barred match, which saw Bianca Belair as a special guest referee. In the 20-woman Battle Royal, to earn a shot at either the WWE Women's or WWE Women's World titles, WWE Women's World titles, Stephanie Valkyrie outlasted 19 other women to earn a title shot at Clash in Paris coming up in a month or so. And the main event originally started out as a singles match for the WWE Women's World title, which turned into a triple threat. Originally starting out as Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley for the WWE Women's World Championship. Naomi came out to cash in her Money in the Bank briefcase, in which she got the pin on Io Sky to become the new WWE Women's World title holder. So now, moving on to tonight, to look ahead to tonight in the aftermath of what's happened over the weekend here on tonight's Monday Night Raw. Let's see what's going on. I did hear at least one match has already been signed for tonight, but we'll also see more of the. So tonight from Birmingham, Alabama, from the Legacy Arena at the BJCC in Birmingham, Alabama, already signed for tonight. Nikki Bella will be taking on Chelsea Green, and in a number one contendership gauntlet match to see who will become the number one contender to the WWE World Heavyweight title. They'll have CM Punk, LA Knight, Jey Uso, Penta, and Braun Breaker all competing to see who becomes the next challenge. Gunther's next challenge. The belief is that this will set up a match for SummerSlam coming up in a few weeks. So now, with all that being said, now of course, I know I ran quite a bit past the time I'd hoped. Well past the time I'd hoped. But with all that being said, with today being Monday, July the 14th, 2025, let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in Niche history. And today we only have a couple things going on in Niche history, so thank goodness. First off, 25 years ago today, on this date, 25 years ago today, actress Meredith McRae passed away at the age of 56 from complications from brain cancer. Now, of course, most people remember Meredith McRae as Billy Joe from Petticoat Junction, but she did have a couple of notable roles in animation as well. She, of course, portrayed Frances Langstrom, the wife of Dr. Kirk Langstrom in Batman the Animated Series. And she also voiced Rachel Quest in Johnny's Golden Quest. So on this date, 25 years ago today, Meredith McRae passed away at the age of 56. And and finally, on this date, oh yeah, let me clear that out first, of course. Finally, on this date, in the year 2020, so 5 years ago today, on this date, 5 years ago today, let's bring it up here. On this date, 5 years ago today, on this date, 5 years ago today, the 255th issue of Looney Tunes in DC Comics went on sale on this date back in 2020. Sold for $2.99 with 32 pages. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I know it went longer than I intended to, but that Neil Gaiman article was pretty lengthy to begin with. So with that being said, of course, um, with that being said, of course, we'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow. Also, this Sunday, I'll be joined by the Metal from the Vomitorium as we continue our look down comics history lane. Going back to comics that went on sale in June of 1940. I believe we'll be focusing in on comics that went on sale from Dell. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.